And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. And Bruins are doing pretty great. Now, again, I mentioned this in the intro for the audio version of this podcast, but this is being taped and recorded prior to Monday night's game against the Panthers. So we don't know what happened. Maybe it was really good. Maybe it was really bad. It's our first one of the season like this. You loyal listeners know this happens throughout the year, and it's just something we got to live with. It's unfortunate, but we do have two good games to go off of. And they were two pretty good games. Pretty good. Pretty good games to go off of. And I know Saturday's game was against the Coyotes, and everybody will say, hey, it's an AHL team. But I still, it's a valid point. It's a valid point. It's incredible that they're still in Arizona, because you look at that roster and it's like, how are you even going to fill a 5,000 seat arena with that roster? I mean, it is not good.
Not great, Evan. That team is on the ropes, as they say.
Very much on the ropes, but they do have old friend Nick Ritchie. So I'll give them that. Nick Ritchie, 2 goals in the first game against the Penguins. So I think he almost had one against the Bruins, if memory serves. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I'm just imagining things I hoped. That would have been very cool if he scored against the Bruins. One more chance for that to happen this year, if it's in Arizona. But the takeaway that I've had from the first 2 games, and you, my friend, had a good tweet about it, Bruins have gotten quite a lot of scoring from a lot of places, which is good, which is encouraging. And again, we say this every postseason. They need their secondary scores to actually step up. And it feels like, again, this isn't the postseason. It's actually just 2 games into the regular season. But it feels like that's starting to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said, just a small sample size, but if you ask me who was going to be the first Bruin on the roster to score more than 1 goal and it'd be AJ Greer, I probably wouldn't believe you. But again, as you said, there's only so much stock you can put into a win over a team like Arizona. But when you have a game like that where you have guys like Greer scores twice, Coyle scores, Derek Forbert, you have Nick Foligno gets on the board, which is good for his momentum. Just regardless of the opponent, to have so many guys further down the depth chart, get a little bit of that tangible production and maybe get the ball rolling, get some momentum. It's huge for this team going forward, especially in this kind of 3 and 4 stretch. So, as you said, Evan, we talk about it all the time. What's the biggest Achilles heel with this team? It's usually the secondary scoring. And of course, yes, there's other things that the Bruins have to sort out in terms of, tighten things up on the D zone, injuries, which I'm sure we're going to talk about quite a bit in this podcast. But when you look at just the response from a game like that, where it's going into a matchup against Arizona, you expect your big guns to be doing a lot of the damage, right? Like a Pastrnak hat trick or what have you. To have a game like that where it's really your third and fourth lines that really kind of set the tone and led the way offensively, it's encouraging. I mean, you look at not only the fact that the Coyle line was great, Frederick responds really well from being the odd man out in the season opener, and I thought he had a really strong game. Greer, I think, even if he's not a guy you're expecting to be a 20 goal scorer, just for him to put forward a performance like that and show that preseason game against the Rangers wasn't just a aberration, wasn't just a fluky thing. Like, he has that finishing ability. He has that ability to impact a game physically. Encouraging there. And Foligno, for as much as I think people want him on the outside looking in terms of just where he takes up a spot in the lineup, give credit where it's due. He was strong in that game. It was kind of similar to that last preseason game against the Devils, where he was engaged. He was in the offensive zone. He was making things happen. We don't even talk about the fact that Lauko could have scored his first NHL goal, and they called it off with due to goaltender interference. So, again, it loses some of its luster, I guess, when you go up against a team like Arizona. But just for the fact that so many guys can, go back in the locker room, have their name, put on the score sheet and have that tangible production and build for that going forward, it helps in the long run. Because you know what you're going to get generally from the Bergerons, the Krejcis, the Pastrnaks, those guys. To have these other guys step in and contribute on the score sheet, it can go a long way towards getting these guys rolling here as we get into the season really starting to pick up already.
And obviously, like as we joke, like the Coyotes are the Coyotes, probably one of the 3 worst teams in hockey. Again, you should be scoring a lot on them, but to have a confidence building game like that so early in the season, I think that's important. I do. I think for a young, kind of new look bottom 6. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And you even mentioned Foligno. Like he could have been the first Bruin to have 2 goals in a season, because on that Zacha goal that hit the post, he beat the goalie. And so like again, like I look at a guy like that and go, okay, that's big for his game. So, and then the AJ Greer thing's an interesting one, because we saw him at the preseason. We were kind of like, could that be like the next Tanner Jeannot? Or like, is this like your next, Blake Coleman or something like that? He has the physical build for it. Like the ingredients are there for him to kind of turn into that. And it feels like again, he wasn't very effective against the Capitals. I think he had the lowest time on ice against Capitals. So again, Coyotes versus Capitals, you can play that game. But again, I just look at it and say it's encouraging. I'm not going to sit here and make some declarative statement like, oh, well, now this proves they have the forward depth, because like it's kind of, I don't want to compare it, but it's like, how Toronto can't win in the playoffs, but they win in the regular season all the time. Crazy, right? Crazy. I look at the Bruins secondary scoring and say, I'll be fully believing in it when I see it in the postseason. Like that's when, like, we can sit here and talk about it all season and it's great, but actually score in the postseason. And again, you can't do that now because it isn't the postseason. It's 2 games into the regular season. So you can't do that yet. Can't do that quite yet. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm just looking at this list like Zacha, Coyle, Foligno, Forbert, Greer. I mean, Forbert obviously just shot from the point, but again,
goals
good stuff.
Yes.
The goal's a goal. And I'm interested to see, this 3 and 4 stretch, who steps up, who's leading the team in goals and points after all that. And my guess is whoever is taking athletic greens is probably actually going to be leading the Bruins in points and goals. That's just my guess. That's my guess. They're
an educated guess.
An educated guess for good reason. I use it every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted better gut health and more energy. I don't drink coffee or use caffeine because I wanted healthier, natural energy, and AG1 is providing it in droves. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy or anything either. It has a mild, wait for it, tropical taste that I actually look forward to each and every morning. So what is this stuff? With 1 delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75. Yes, 75. Count them all. High quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting really, really good. This all supports better sleep quality and mental clarity. I like seeing you just sitting in the palm trees. I find that
it's tropical, man.
Amazing. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. And that is all. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. You will literally be on top of the earth taking this. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Bruins. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Bruins. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So the one bad thing from Saturday's game that are bad for the Bruins. Brandon Carlo gets hit up high, hits the glass, finishes the shift, goes down the tunnel, upper body injury. They say he's in, looks all right, but for a guy who has a history with concussions, this is not particularly good.
No, it's not good. And again, as you said, they weren't going to outright say what it was beyond just the very, broad upper body injury, but put 2 and 2 together in terms of his history with concussions, the hit in question, kind of how he reacted. I think we can go off some assumptions here a little bit. And again, for that, as much as Montgomery says they don't think he'll be out long-term or he looks better, it's a slippery slope, right? When it comes to projecting a return, when it comes to something like concussions, especially someone who's had, I think this is his 5th, I want to say now, 5th since 2017, if not more. I could be missing one. And yeah, it's a brutal hit for him too. I mean, it's kind of what we talked about with a guy like DeBrusk who goes down with an injury, where a guy coming into the season with heightened expectations, has a new coach, is hoping to take a big step forward. And as much as people maybe are, not maybe as high on Carlo as he was maybe a few years ago, he's still a guy that you need in that lineup healthy kind of really stabilize that right side, especially here in the early going where you don't have Charlie McAvoy really kind of being that franchise player on that right side. So having him out the lineup just again makes a devastating domino effect where we're looking at a game now going into Monday night against the Panthers where you have one right shot, I think, in the lineup in Clifton. You have, Dan Renouf called up. You have, I think Riley slotting over, or it's very much a patchwork decor right now. And again, they have the talent and the personnel to kind of stay afloat. We'll see how they do against a team like Florida that can score quite a bit. This could be a bit of a shootout of a game, as we predicted. It's going to be like 1-0 now that I say that.
Yeah, now you've totally cursed it.
But yeah, regardless of what you think of Carlo and his ceiling or where he fits into this team, in terms of is he the same player he was a few years ago? Just having him out there to log those heavy minutes to contribute on the PK, just that stability of being able to pencil him in the lineup, it's really missed right now in terms of just having him out there when you already are missing guys like McAvoy and Grzelcyk and what have you. So really tough break for him. Again, wasn't maybe the strongest start to the season for him. We're going off of 4 periods of hockey, so it's probably not even fair to declare that for him, but he's a guy that you hope was going to be someone that could take that next step forward, or at least get back to the player that we know he can be. I mean, we've talked about it before, Evan, that during that run to the 2019 Cup final, I think Carlo and Krug was the best D pair they had.
Oh yeah,
just did everything right. So you hope again that what Montgomery said comes true, that it's not long term, but still, it just when it's something like this where it's a repeated injury and something of this severity, you just hope that it doesn't snowball and he doesn't miss extended amount of time. So he's the guy that you need out there. He needs to be healthy, but when you just factor in the other things with concussion, you just hope, above all, that he's just feeling good, feeling like himself.
Oh, exactly. Like that's the biggest thing is, 5 concussions. That's horrible. And I think the other thing is like, you need him for the postseason. Like I know, and another thing is like, obviously, we've talked in recent years about how he hasn't, I think, ascended to the level that most have expected out of him. A lot of that has to do with concussion history and injury history. Like it's clearly kind of hampered him, and more concussions like this aren't going to help. And the sad reality with concussions is the more you're out there, and if you had them, the more likely you are to continue to get them. It's an unfortunate part of the deal. And head injuries, it feels like, aren't as big of a thing, or at least is talked about as they used to be. Kind of like at the early 2010s. I think that's partially because hockey isn't as physical as it maybe once was. But as you see, it doesn't need to be like getting laid out in open ice for that to be a concussion. That was a normal hit. I mean, remember the David Backes hit on the guy from the Senators? Remember this a few years ago?
Yes.
Who had to get taken out? I'm blanking on his name. But that was another instance. Like it's a horrible part of the game. And again, you hope above all else that Brandon Carlo is okay. Because again, you need him. You really need him. And yeah, I mean, again, and again, this is an opportunity for Derek Forbort to continue to step forward. He's looked really good through 2 games. So yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like on D. Up front, though, there is another injury with Jake DeBrusk. He is out with an upper body injury from the game against Washington. Didn't play, obviously, on Saturday night. I'm blanking on this. Is he in for the Panthers game on Monday or no?
He is not. No, he's going to be out for at least a couple more games. I believe he was asked on Sunday about like a
10
timeline,
days, right?
And he said about 10 days. I don't know if that's 10 days from the injury. I don't know if that rules him out for maybe this whole 3 and 4 stretch, and he could be back on Saturday afternoon against the Wild, or if it's maybe they just kind of cross off this whole week and maybe start anew. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be out long term, which is good news because you can never tell when it's something like that where it's either shoulder, hand, what have you, if it's something broken, if it's something that's nagging or anything like that, but will not be in play for at least, I imagine, this 3 and 4 set.
And it's tough because again, he's another one like Carlo, who again, you want to start hot under the new head coach, and DeBrusk even more than Carlo. DeBrusk had a trade request and rescinded it. Looked great at the end of last season. Now, coming into this year, it's like, all right, like a new revitalized Jake DeBrusk. And now you're hampered by this injury. And now you're really starting the season a week from now, a week and a half from now. And suddenly, again, I don't expect Craig Smith to stick. with Bergeron and Hall, even though probably like him too. And I think it's DeBrusk's spot. I think he's a long-term solution now, or at least like the guy they're looking at in the top 6. But again, just unfortunate that he's missing this time that you could be using to kind of get acclimated.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, in the short term, having Craig Smith up there isn't a bad contingency plan. It's something where you hope maybe in the next 2-3 games he pots a goal or gets some points and builds some of that momentum, as we talked about earlier. And by the time he gets back down to that third line, he's rolling a bit more because he's kind of known as being a bit of a streaky scorer. But as you said, yeah, for DeBrusk, it's just a tough hit in terms of just having some of that momentum stalled. Because I thought, even though I think he only had 1 goal in the preseason, I thought he was really active around the puck during preseason action. Made a lot of smart, simple plays, a couple of nice saucer feeds that led to a couple of grade A chances. Just his details seemed like they were really good. And even in the sequence where he got hurt against Washington, he was really battling for the puck down low, I think. And one thing led to another. I think it was Gustafsson who maybe kind of gave him a little bit of a cross check and he hit the ice awkwardly, but was kind of doing the things he needed to do, whether it be, fighting for those loose pucks, winning board battles, hanging down low, all those things that he needs to do on that top line. So you just hope that this is a temporary setback, and by the time he's back out there, whether it be maybe this weekend or next week, that he kind of just continues that same game plan. Because if he sticks to that and he's going to be on the Bergeron line, the points and the goals are going to be there for him.
Especially when Marchand returns in November, which, by the way, Marchand was on the ice at practice with a regular jersey on Sunday, which is wild, actually.
Yes. Timeline's not changing, but yes.
No, timeline is not changing. We should note that timeline is still, post Thanksgiving. I want to end this episode on this. I know it's 2 games. We don't really know what's going on with the Panthers game on Monday night because, again, recording beforehand. Has your outlook on this team changed at all? I know we both have them in the cup, so it's different. But has it changed? Is there anything that stuck out to you through 2 games that you say, this changes things, or this surprises me?
I would probably say it's one thing that's kind of stuck out. Of course, you look at just the stat sheet and the amount of guys that have contributed, and it's encouraging, at least early on. But I think more than anything, it's just kind of their overall approach, especially in the offensive zone. There's been a couple of times where they've been outshot in a period, or they haven't had the same kind of formula in years past where it's a lot of low to high peppering the net. I think you're seeing it so far through at least a couple of games that they are definitely focusing more on quality over quantity in terms of their shot attempts in the offensive zone. It's leading to high quality looks. And that's something that I think the Bruins are continuing to stress. I mean, when you even look at a situation like Jim Montgomery, where after that play in Washington where Pasternak, that shot gets blocked, leads to a 2-on-1 from Washington, they score. That's one where, you look at the momentum in the game possibly shifting and being maybe too aggressive or too risky of a play. And afterwards, Montgomery's like, no, we take that chance, 100 out of 100 times. So I think for Montgomery and kind of what he's preaching, you're starting to see a little bit more of it. Again, I don't think they're going to be fully bought in or fully executing what his overall vision is in terms of offensive zone scheme, how they approach the neutral zone, which is a little bit different. Obviously, the ability to get the D more involved offensively, like these aren't things that are going to just happen overnight or it's going to fully fall in line. But you're at least seeing them starting to buy into some of those principles. And if as more guys get back healthy and more guys start executing that, by the time we get to late November, early December, it'll be really fascinating to see where exactly this team is at as we all kind of predict, kind of get past this kind of tough month or 2 of the season and kind of build towards what they're hoping for is a strong second half.
This is going to sound obvious, but judging how they've been off 2 games, I'm fascinated to see this team at full strength. I'm fascinated because I think, as you said, the offensive side of this team, I think, is growing. They're getting to those high danger areas. Now, again, how much does that impact defensively? What do their goals against numbers look like at the end of the year? Can you win in the postseason like that? Like, I think it's a legitimate question. I know, again, early in the season, but can you beat the Lightning trying to kind of outscore them? Can you beat Toronto, for that matter, trying to outscore them? Like, get to the point, can you beat Colorado like that? Like, there's an interesting case there where, they're getting those high danger areas. Is it sustainable? Now, we'll see this season. They might, be terrific throughout the course of the year, which we both project. And suddenly you're like, okay, this is might be a new team in the postseason. And again, I just look at, as I mentioned to you on Poke the Bear, They were outshot against the Capitals on Thursday
Wednesday.
night. Now Wednesday, but I will say now if they were outshot by the Coyotes, that's not
great.
That's not what you want. But when you're up against the Capitals, where it's kind of even, and you're gonna sack and you want the quality over quantity, good. We said this on Poke the Bear. How many times throughout the course of the last 2 or 3 years were we sitting there like, oh, the Bruins outshot opponent X, 41-26, and they lost 3-2. Like, oh, terrific. So again, like this, I think is steps in the right direction. But again, as I said to you, I am fascinated by how this team looks at full strength. Fortunately, though, I'll be able to follow all my Bruins action over at Boston Sports Journal this year. What can people look forward to from you over at BSJ?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way as the schedule really sets to ramp up here. We'll have you covered with game reports, reports from practices, video breakdowns, features, all that good stuff. Of course, these podcasts and more video online on Bruins Rinkside. So please follow along at all those stops, Bruins Rinkside, and of course, BostonSportsJournal.com. Please subscribe over at BSJ. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Oh, do all that. For CLNS Media, I'm Evan Marinofsky. Bruins listeners, have a great rest of your week.